So this scandal / non-scandal is, it's a couple days old now, but I figured why not? Let's talk about it a little bit. Now, Joe Rogan recently said in a podcast of his that he will, quote, probably vote for Bernie Sanders. Now, awesome. That's great. I like to think I played some role in, him coming to that position. Namely because, you know what, I'm not even going to brag about the thing I did behind the scene. It comes across as like very insufferable and narcissistic. And honestly, it's irrelevant. Fact of the matter is, I'm happy that he has come to the position where he said he will, quote, probably vote for Bernie Sanders. I welcome that. And, I think anybody who's reasonable and thinking straight will welcome that. Now, the reaction was something else. So, Bernie Sanders' team, I don't know who ultimately made the decision, but somebody in the campaign made the decision. My guess is the decision was not made by Bernie himself, and my guess is the decision was not made by the campaign manager, Faz Shakir. So, I don't know who made the decision, but they tweeted a video of just Rogan saying, I'll probably vote for Bernie. And it was him saying that along with the thing that makes Bernie so special is that he's been consistent throughout his entire career. So awesome. Great. Number one podcaster in the world with a semi-endorsement there. I say semi-endorsement because he said he will, quote, probably vote for Bernie. And he had previously said he supports Tulsi. So, I guess it's up in the air. Is he going to vote for Tulsi? Is he going to vote for Bernie? Does it depend on what the race is looking like by the time it gets to California? I don't know. But, it's a semi-endorsement and they wanted to highlight it. And you would think that Bernie Sanders was touting the endorsement of John Wayne Gacy. You would thought, he dug up the Unabomber and the Unabomber was like, love that guy, man. Because what followed was a 2 or 3 day festival of fake outrage. So, you had what originally was a lot of like high-profile Warren supporters, but then the media also hopped on the bandwagon and started writing these concern trolling articles. And basically, they said, hey, here's a list of all of the naughty things Joe Rogan has ever said throughout his entire career. And, Bernie, you messed up here. Why would you tout his endorsement? That's not good. And it's hard for me to actually digest the fact that anybody is actually mad. In fact, I don't even think, maybe a grand total of like 2 out of the 10 people who were talking about this were actually mad about it. But my guess is the overwhelming majority were not mad about it. Why? Because he's the number one podcaster in the world. So when you have somebody who's the number one podcaster in the world casually say like, yeah, I like the guy and I'll probably vote for him, why wouldn't you highlight that? Because it's not just about him. It's also about the millions of people who watch him. And also, isn't the whole point to try to get people on the side of a left-wing ideology? Isn't that like the whole mission of the left? Isn't our goal to expand our coalition, get as many votes as possible, and therefore win so we could get our agenda implemented? Isn't that the whole idea? Well, no. Apparently, you're not supposed to highlight the endorsement of Joe Rogan because Joe Rogan has said things in the past that were either politically incorrect in some instances or wrong in other instances or just joking in other instances. They were highlighting a tweet where he said like, man, I really love it when 2 gay guys kiss in public because, it's great that they're showing public displays of affection or something to that extent. Isn't that a positive pro-gay tweet? I just spit all over the place when I said the word tweet. But isn't that what that is? That's a pro-gay tweet. The other thing is he's being called transphobic in 1,000 different ways because one of his opinions that he's spoken about on the show is, hey, I don't think somebody who went through puberty as a biological male and then transmissions, that's not how you say it, and then gets the gender reassignment surgery and becomes female, I don't think that in combat sports that makes sense. particularly because you have a giant advantage going through puberty as a male. So if you switch to combat sports and you fight, but you've become a female, you still have the advantages that you got as a male. Whether it's, the bigger frame, the quicker reaction time, so on and so forth. So now Rogan stresses endlessly that I think you should have the right to do whatever you want to do, and I think you have the right to be called whatever you want to be called. You want to be called a woman? I'll call you a woman. You want to change your name? Okay, I'll call you whatever your changed name is. I think you have every right in the world to be trans. He said this a million times, but the fact that he says, hey, there's a conversation here to be had about biological men who, after puberty, become women, and then they want to fight other biological women who've been women their entire lives, that might be an issue. And, it's dangerous for the biological woman. He said that immediately. Everybody shut your brain off. Immediately call it transphobic. And, just summarize that entire conversation and that debate by just saying he's, one word, transphobic. And they take other things that he said in the past on a variety of issues. There were people, like, I'm not kidding, going through old Joe Rogan comedy specials from the 1990s trying to pull quotes and be like, aha, he said this. Think about how sad that is. He's a comedian, podcaster, UFC commentator. And they're going back through stuff from the 1990s. Another one they pulled up is Rogan talking shit with one of his comedian buddies, I think it was. I think it was his buddy Eddie Bravo, where they're messing around and they're talking about like, imagine Hillary Clinton like blowing a room of people. Would you even want a blowjob from Hillary? Now, is that a crass topic? Yes. They know it's a crass topic. Is it something to be outraged over? No, it's called talking shit. Are you kidding me? Every single person out there who's bitching about this, if you go through their text messages, I guarantee you they've said things that are equally as obnoxious and preposterous and over the top and ridiculous and crass. You want to know why? 'Cause we're human beings. And the thing about Joe Rogan is he will say in public in front of millions of people the exact same thing that he will say behind closed doors in private with people. You want to know how I know? Because I've been on his show 3 times and I know the guy, and whatever he says publicly, he'll say off it. The conversations are exactly the same. Have you ever stopped to think about the fact maybe that's why he's got the #1 podcast in the world? Maybe that's why he's monumentally popular. And that's the thing about all the fake outrage from mainstream media is like, these are all people who have public and private positions. So they put on their public face when I'm very serious, and here I wrote an article, here I did some angry tweets. See me, am I virtue signaling enough for you? This is what they do. They have the public face and then they have the private face, and they are totally different, and they're okay with that. They think that makes them more civil. They think that makes them, we believe in decorum, but they also think it makes them more moral and ethical, and that's the main point. So when they go after him for saying naughty things, they think like, aha, I'm going to wag my finger at you because I'm moral and you're not moral. I'm ethical and you're not ethical. See, you've said very rude things in person in front of millions of people. I can't believe you said those things. This is their mindset. Little do they understand that almost everybody realizes at this point, oh, so you're getting mad at him because he's authentic. And he says the same thing in public as he would say privately. So that's the operative thing about Joe, is he's just talking shit. Why is everybody pretending like talking shit doesn't exist? Why are we all pretending like that's not a thing? Everything you've ever said has to be this is a very buttoned-down thesis of exactly what I believe, and I believe it, yes. No, sometimes you talk shit. Sometimes you say whatever the fuck comes to your mind. Sometimes it's ridiculous. Sometimes it's offensive. But when you have those conversations with your friend, nobody ever pulls a red car on you and is like, how dare you say that? I can't believe you say that. Nobody ever says that because they're your friends and you're fucking around. He just has those conversations publicly. Now, by the way, does that mean I agree with Joe Rogan on everything? No! When I was on his show the first time, I actually kind of debated him a little bit on the trans issue. So, you're allowed to disagree with him. You're allowed to point out those disagreements. You're allowed to have conversations about those disagreements. Nobody would want that more than Joe Rogan himself. He loves sitting across from somebody who disagrees with him and sparring with them, or, hey, I think this, what do you think? Oh, you think that? Interesting, wonderful, let's talk about it. Again, why his show is so popular, but that's not what these people are doing. They're virtue signaling, and they're woke scolding, and they're pretending like, I'm better than you, because you've said naughty things that are bad, bad things, bad. And it's not working anymore. This shitty, politically correct, over-the-top, fake outrage isn't working anymore. You want to know why? Because the same people who were totally cool with and touting the endorsement of Henry Kissinger of Hillary Clinton, they thought that was a good thing, are now like, I can't believe Bernie accepted an endorsement from the #1 podcaster in America. Joe Rogan never committed war crimes. Henry Kissinger did commit war crimes. You have Michelle Obama, who just recently said that her and George W. Bush have the same values. Well, he's also a war criminal. He did torture. He did illegal wars. He's got minimum 200,000 dead Iraqi civilians' blood on his hands. And you're going to tell me you have the exact same, the exact same values as George W. Bush? Well, that's pretty damning, isn't it? But the thing is, mainstream media thinks that's wonderful. Nah, yes, a former president. He's within the realm of respectable discourse, yeah. Except he's a war criminal, and if we actually applied the Nuremberg laws, he'd be hanged. You got Ellen hanging out with George W. Bush, joking around, watching the game together. Isn't this fun? Yeah, this is fun. That's totally fine and acceptable. By the way, it's not. I'm actually against that. But it's not okay to tout the endorsement of a comedian who says controversial things. Piss right off with that. Because every single person, and final point I'll make is this. Guys, if Elizabeth Warren, I know this for a fact. He said it publicly, but actually Joe told me this privately before he said it publicly. Elizabeth Warren, Mayor Pete, Joe Biden, he said, quote, every one of the presidential candidates wanted to get on his show and contacted him. You know what he said? Not interested. You want to know why? Because he knows, they're just bullshitters. They'll say whatever they think I want to hear or my audience wants to hear to my face on the podcast. They're putting on, again, public position, private position. He knows all these other people, they have public positions and private positions. So everything is coached. Everything is overly thought out. This is the giant problem Elizabeth Warren ran into, is that she stopped even trying to be populist and trying to be like Bernie, and she started overthinking and over-strategizing, accusing him of sexism. She was just asked, is Hillary right when she says that nobody likes Bernie? And Elizabeth Warren totally dodged. I'm not going to get into that. You can't even say about your friend, I like him, and I count. You can't even say that? Overly coached. Public positions, private positions. All of them know that. But Joe Rogan knows that all these people would just say to his face whatever the hell they have planned out. He knew that when he spoke to Yang, when he spoke to Tulsi, and when he spoke to Bernie, he's just talking to somebody who he finds interesting. And he knows that they're going to tell him the truth. Every single one of these people who are fake morally grandstanding over the Joe Rogan endorsement, they would drink battery acid to have Joe Rogan utter a single positive sentence about them. That goes for Warren, that goes for Biden, that goes for Mayor Pete. And all their supporters, too. They would be touting the #1 podcaster in America, yes, loves our candidate, yes. They would use it. They wouldn't even talk about controversial stuff, but if they did, they would talk about it in the context of, see how much he's grown and see how much he's come around to the proper position. That's how they would talk about it. But since it's Bernie, they literally tried to get Bernie to disavow the endorsement. By the way, Bernie didn't endorse Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan semi-endorsed Bernie. So let's understand that there's a difference there. Bernie compromised none of his values at all. He's arguing for the same thing he was arguing for the day before, the week before, the year before, 20 years ago. Bernie didn't endorse Rogan. Rogan endorsed Bernie. So what do you want him to do? I disavow the support of the most popular podcaster in America, and by extension, his 15 million fans can piss right off forever. That's actually what they want, though. They wanted Bernie to do that because they know it's just a political trick on their part. It's a ploy. Oh, disavow, 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 so that it'll hurt you in the polls. God, you're doing so well and we don't know how to stop you. This is bad, disavow. Well, thankfully, and I do mean thankfully, because the Bernie campaign has folded in the past, with Cenk Uygur and in other instances as well. Thankfully, they finally showed a little spine. They finally showed a little spine, and they basically said, no, we're trying to grow our campaign. We're trying to welcome people in who perhaps previously wouldn't have been in the camp, and we think it's wonderful when people endorse left-wing ideas, and we're just as committed as we've ever been to trans rights and everything else. People were saying, oh, this proves Bernie's not serious about trans rights. In the 80s, he made Burlington, Vermont a, quote, trans mecca because he's so pro-trans rights and equality. So all your fake virtue signaling comes to naught because we know, at the end of the day, on policy, which is all that matters, Bernie's going to fight for the correct position. So I think this was 100% the right thing. I think you absolutely had to double down. They did double down, and I'm happy about that, man. I'm really happy about that because it shows a mindset that, oh, if you guys keep doing this, you could win. And by the way, there's a lot of really good polls that just came out for Bernie recently. Very good polls. In Iowa, in New Hampshire, national polls, a lot of really good polls. But, I'm going to say pretend like he's still 10 points down and work your butt off because we can't get overconfident. That's our enemy. Overconfidence is absolutely our enemy. So anyway, the Joe Rogan controversy apparently was a thing, but it was a very fake thing. I'm sorry, guys, but there's got to be a statute of limitations on outrage. There has to be. There has to be. And also, we got to stop with the, you want to get outraged? Sometimes I'm pro-outrage, but I'm always pro-outrage at things that politicians actually do. So in other words, it's more about your actions. It's not about what you say. It's not about, oh my God, you said something. You made a controversial joke in 2008. How could you? That's so stupid and that's so unserious. When we have all these problems to fix, we're, bombing 8 different countries, 78% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck, 7 million people just lost their health insurance, 45,000 die every year because they don't have basic health care. The list goes on and on of all these problems, and you're angry about, podcast comments from the early 2010s or some shit? I mean, come on. So you can be outraged, but be outraged at things politicians do. Be outraged at the state of affairs in terms of homelessness, all serious issues. I can't take you seriously if you're all, naughty comments bad. Okay, what are you, 4? Who gives a fuck? Move on. So, anyway. This was a non-controversy, but there was a good outcome, and I'm happy about it.